Welcome to Daily Design Stories. And today we have Jigna Shah Oza, award winning communication designer, with us. I'll hand over the mic to you. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
I am a communication designer and I have been working for 20 plus years. I was very passionate about design right since childhood, and I always wanted to do something in the design field. Though I started my career with advertising, but design is where my heart lies. But it was a very conscious decision to work by myself. Whereas when you work with any firm, they kind of give you everything on the platter. But when you're by yourself, you have to collaborate with people, you have to do things by yourself. So that was a conscious decision I had made then, just to learn and create a mark for myself. When you start by yourself, the first biggest thing, the most important thing, not even the first, the most important thing is to understand where to put your foot on. In terms of good work is a must, there is no two ways about it, but to able to charge right for the amount of work that you have created and the amount of experience that you bring on the table is something which is unmatchable, because often that is the case where people either charge too high or too low, and there is no balance between. So you have to grow eventually in this industry, and which is why the right balance is the most critical thing.
Can you share an example or an example that you share with your students to a work of yours with us? And maybe how did that come into place? What's the story behind it?
Sure. So, Orbango juices is the packaging that I created. I'll talk a little about that. Orbango juices bottles are very remarkable and very unique. It's like a conversation starter the first time the consumer sees it. Um, when you hold, so it's a bottle with an edge and a curve on one side. And this unique and beautiful shape of the bottle allows it to be sold singularly as well as a pack of four, which fits like pieces fit into a pizza. So, designing this unique shape was very easy on the paper with different concepts. Of course, you had to go through a lot of changes and iterations and stuff like that. It's not like a cakewalk that you do the first sketch or 10 sketches and you're sorted. No, it doesn't work like that in reality. uh, of course, there are a lot of feedback, iterations, back and forth, but once the paperwork is done, I think the main thing then is to move on to execution. So while there were different color combinations used for unique flavors that they had, and the solution that we provided had to be executed, had to be applied onto the bottle, which was straight, which was edgy, which was groovy, and circular at the same time. Now this is something which was very difficult. So existing market don't have any kind of references. So upfront we were we did a lot of trial and errors actually to execute this thing. So while 3D print helps to an extent, but the shrink sleeve was where we really experimented, and it took a lot of mathematical precision to get the typography lettering, to get the string sleeve fit on a shape which is like a pie, like a pizza piece, which is triangular in shape. So a lot of trial and errors were done with that. Lot of vendors existingly, they ask for a lot of different kind of samples if you've created something different, which is of course not there because it's just on paper and it's a 3D print. But when you actually want to execute, there are no existing samples. So the ecosystem right now which we have for executing any packaging, the vendors I'm talking about, it wasn't easy to take through them and say, oh, this is what I want to produce. Most of them wouldn't even buy into it. It took a lot of I think discussions and meetings where we actually convinced them that this bottle will stand and it will do the work, have the right kind of fill in the bottle, etc. So what happens is, classically these vendors, uh, they ask for packaging, existing packs or samples or references which are there in the market. But given that there might be some minor tweaking which can be done. Now, we didn't have anything of this sort. There was no backup sample for any of this. So it was, so after speaking to a lot of vendors, did somebody get convinced? It really took a lot of effort. I think Paperboat and Orbango juice bottles are a few examples, I would say, in the market where there is so much of hard work, passion, and vendor research done in the process. I think we took almost a year to execute this bottle. While it happened, the sketching and bit happened in a few months, the paper prints and stuff like that. But it took a lot of time for execution because no vendor was ready to execute that. So once you go through this process, you actually come across best people, best vendors, best minds in packaging and this industry, where they are willing to try something different. Often what happens that when there are large players in the market, uh, and there is large quantity one has to address, the vendors are ready to do stuff. But when there are not, the ecosystem is driven in such a way where the constraints are such that you need to have uh, either large quantities, or else they make it prohibitively expensive for, the client to reproduce anything new that is there in the market. So that was the biggest challenge. And apart from that, the shrink sleeve labeling, to get it correct on a shape which was non existent, was the biggest challenge I think we faced. So, considering a lot of trial and errors, mathematical precision that was there for the entire process, and then sheer willingness of the vendor, seeing the team's passion and innovative spirit, they went ahead and did something, and that's how the Orbango juice bottle came into being. So it was a great experience all in all. But we as designers, while we design on paper, on our system, we also have to live with existing economical constraints that are posed onto us by the system. We have to be ready to try out different things, to, and not at the cost of a lot of a huge amount of money, then people don't really experiment too much. It's very easy for a product manager to say, hey, this is the thing, this is the existing bottle, ye hai, us pe ye label laga do, and we are sorted. When you want to do something different, it takes a lot of effort and time. So while, because it was a very different idea and it was perceived very well with the clients, once they had that bottle, they wanted to buy a pack of four, and they wanted to retain it by themselves and reuse it. Often when you go to any exhibition, you try some brand, you have the product, and you chuck the packaging. People didn't chuck away the packaging, they took it with themselves, they reused it. um, as a designer, I think that was the big satisfaction that I gave, that, oh, this is a very different thing and I want to retain it.
Interesting. So, as you said about packaging product being reused, can you give an advice for young designers to take that risk, moving from the normal design to doing an experimental design?
It's very subjective, to what materials do you use, what kind of shape you'll build upon, whether it's foldable and kept and reusable. I would say sustainability, like everybody else is saying right now, and that's the need of the hour, because every time we buy something new, we need to discard something and move on, and that cycle will always go on. So creating something that is easily dissolvable in the soil and usable to its potential would be the best thing to do. Those kind of solutions, those kind of materials used, the kind of size that is required, the kind of exploration that is required in terms of concept. So something like just carrying your cloth bag to the vegetable vendor was a mandate for some time during COVID. And you know how to recycle plastic, and well, plastic is very economical, but it's creating so much of harm and danger. So I think globally, everybody is looking at some solution that can be biodegradable, that can be easily used and disposed. I think would be the key to the future of design. And it is very, very critical that it's high time we look at something like that. So even like, let's say if I've bought a bed sheet, for example, either there is a plastic or a paper cover that we normally, get. Most of the time it's plastic. Now if I design something that will be of a cloth which can be reused in some other way, it's great. So there is an extended thought the designer has put even after you use the product. And that is much required, I feel. That is the need of the time.
How do you steal like a pro? Steal a design like a pro?
So, you don't steal most of the times. Um, I think if you steal, it's like I said, somewhere in your conscious it's there. But for the time being, work is done. You don't grow with that. You only grow when you know that, like when you do 100 solutions and you know which works the best and it answers all the questions. Given the current scenario, when you have tight deadlines and when you have to deliver, sometimes some shortcuts here and there are taken by a lot of people. But all in all, I would say do your best and make that your unique signature in terms of maybe getting inspired but not copying upfront.
So, which aspects of teaching fuels your thought process as a designer? Can you please share a few takeaways for our audience?
So it's very amazing to know the psyche of the new generation, and uh, the kind of thought process they have, the kind of new ideas they bring to the table, the kind of uh, everything is constantly changing and evolving, and so is its relevance. So, in these changing times, when you see the new generation, new technology, new age, see their perspective, I think it adds on a lot of value to your work too. And that's what gives me a big kick to kind of stay in touch with the latest technology, with the latest things that's happening, and the mindset. So that really helps to get some kind of insights, staying in touch with the current things, and moving forward in the field of design.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I agree to your point that everything is constantly changing or evolving so fast right now. It's
Absolutely.
you have to catch up with everything as well as answer to everyone, right? So it's great.
And teaching was something which I think I was thrown into. I was never had this idea that I will go and teach one day. I was just thrown, okay, I know just by a meeting with the dean, and he's like, I know you're going to do well, meeting for something else. And it's like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
How how was the transition for you to teaching inside a classroom? Like I remember our time when we used to sit with you and we learned a lot of things. How was your transition from teaching inside a classroom to a laptop or through a laptop?
Yeah, initially it was, I had this jittery feeling, how will things go and what will happen. But I'm so happy that people from different places all over the world, I would say, they come on to this platform where you want to learn. So it's like a universal language that you are speaking understand. Of course, there are constraints where the web connection might not be so good, and you have to live with those constraints, I guess. But overlooking them, it was a wonderful experience. I normally go through my presentations, and every time I revisit them, I feel there is something more to say. There's something more to add. So, in a way, it became very easy to teach online with those kind of presentations that you had for different kind of concepts that you want to explain. But the whole idea of working together as a group, those things definitely were missed, because while you worked online on groups, but the physical way of going out, exploring, talking to people, um, actually in terms of explaining some kind of geometric figures, etc., were difficult. But I think we all managed to kind of come through that.
As you shared about your teaching experience with us, can you also share an experience of your student in your teaching life?
I normally teach different age groups. I have taught over these 5 years that I've been teaching. I've taught postgraduate students, I've taught undergraduate students. Right now, I'm teaching STM, strategic management students of second year. So there has been diversity in the way, while I teach the same thing, but it's been very different with different kind of students. So it's very amazing to know that so many people want to learn design. Okay, and I think in these last few years, it has become a big thing where even though you are from the field of science or engineering or any of those things, design is very important to know how it works, how the marketing part of it works, the costings work, and the actual know-how of it. While you are not from that background, it's difficult when I am from a different background and I have to study something else. It's very difficult to apprehend or to know, okay, I don't have that creative eye, but I'm willing to do something new, I'm willing to try. So this student, he was not from the background, but there was a strong willing of learning, knowing very well that aesthetically, ma'am, I will not do well. So don't expect that from me. I will not know the softwares as easily and fluently and all of that. But uh, do expect in terms of ideation and outcome that I am here and I'm eager to learn more on that. It was very different, though you don't score good marks or great marks, I would say, but very overwhelming to know that that student had put in a lot of efforts to reach from where we began to the end of the course, and that student did very, very well. So, fully knowing and even telling upfront that I am not from this field, but I'm willing to do something different was a very nice experience. So we as teachers, we need to be very open about a student being. See, it's very easy for an art student to create different kind of concepts, or they understand the language. But when you're not from the field, it's difficult. It's tricky to kind of know what should be expected out of that student. So it's nice when you see the student achieve and understand the entire process and do well. It's very satisfying.
So, what's your message to the newcomers in the communication design industry? How do they start?
You have to be good at your work. There is no two ways about hardworking and being good at your work. You should be able to tell a story very well. A storyteller, a great storyteller, will always communicate so many different messages that otherwise people, and very creatively. So, and knowing the markets well, to know what to do when. And when there is a balance between all these three things, I think the path is comparatively easy to work on.
Okay, okay. So let's start with DBS's brand design rapid fire. It's a pretty straightforward game. I'll name a brand and you have to tell three good things about them. Okay, as a designer. So let's start. The first brand, Uber.
Book, ride, rate.
Okay. Second, Swiggy.
Easy, convenient, loads of choices.
Okay. Coca-Cola.
Red, the font and the Sonic logo.
Oh, okay. And Nike.
Um, Sports, the tick mark, just do it.
Let's do it. Okay, and the last one, daily design stories.
Innovative, hard work, experiences to make your life easy.